back to the program, and thank you for keeping us company this far. So before we went for the break, Engineer Mushemi right here was bringing in a very key point to this discussion, and I'm sure it's not the first time we're making that point about harvesting water, most especially creation or construction of dams. But then again, everything you've said, we had it last year, we had it the year before, and it's 2018, we're still not doing anything about it. Why the double standards, someone may ask? We know what to do, but we're not doing it.
No, in all fairness, I think something is being done. It's just that it is a long-term project.
Okay.
The dams, I know there are some dams under construction. I think we have a Rudo 2 dam, which is under construction. There is a Karimeno dam somewhere in Kieni, and quite a few others dotted across the country. And I'm sure when that project comes to stream, I'm sure you'll see some of these issues going down or slowing down. Because, one, we can't afford to have all these floods. Number two, we can't then have all this water going down to the Indian Ocean, because we need the water. Yeah. Right, for our domestic consumption, because you realize, despite these floods, there are still parts of Nairobi who are complaining about lack of water. Right. So it's very ironical. There's so much water, but very little to drink. So something needs to be done. But I think that something is a long-term project. But even at a personal level, I think most households must have a policy of harvesting rainwater. Mr. Njoroge, a modest house can harvest enough rainwater to last for about a month. Most modest households. It's just that a lot of water from the roofs actually ends up on the streets. And this kind of water, it may not be clean for drinking, but you can use it for washing your cars, you can use it for washing your clothes, you can wash your house with it. So, and that also saves the funds, the money we are paying to Nairobi Water. So, really, we should be telling people it is in your interest to harvest rainwater from your roof. So even at a very personal level, there's something we can do, even as we wait for the government to do these mega dams.
As we wait for Serikali to idea. Yes, coming to you, Patricia, has there been a shift in weather patterns? There are people who say, you know what, I think we're receiving a little too much than we used to, so we are kind of overwhelmed. Is that the truth?
Well, weather is quite dynamic, and like I mentioned earlier, we have two main seasons, and as you may know, in the past few years we've had failed seasons. So we've had rainfall seasons where very little rainfall was received, and then we have a season like this one where we have very heavy rain in most parts of the country. So this is quite normal. The shifts usually happen. But maybe it's important to note also that as we continue along the years, we expect climate change to affect our weather patterns. And if you talk to people a long time ago, they will tell you the rainfall that we used to have some time back is not the way it is today. Say 40 years, 30, 40 years back. Rainfall used to come at a specific time, and you could plan without even receiving information from the weather department. But today, weather information is very crucial, the one that we provide, because the patterns are very erratic. The onsets are late, sometimes they're too early, then the rainfall ceases too early. So really, right now, we need everyone to play a part. And I'd like to support what Engineer said. This should come from a personal level, actually, because if we always wait for the government to help and do all that, they have a lot that they're working on. So if individually all of us can harvest water at small scale, get a drum, harvest water, you can use it, like he said, for washing your car. Maybe you have a small garden, you can use that to assist you, and in the long run it pays.
You said that climate change will have an effect. Someone may wonder, to what extent? Like, is there a range we can work with, maybe that will help us?
Well, studies on projections of climate for Africa suggest that in the near future we expect to have more intense storms. So what we're seeing now is really small. So yeah, we expect to have heavy rainfall over shorter periods of time. And as we continue to be urbanized, like engineer said again, infiltration doesn't occur like it used to occur before. So small problems contribute to this complex problem. So we expect longer drought, longer dry spells, and when it does rain, very heavy rainfall over short periods of time. Yes.
Interesting to note that it will rain heavy,
yes,
but for a shorter period,
yes,
meaning the dry period will extend a little longer than we're used to.
Yes.
You also said that there will be an increase in the storms. Like what we've seen right now is just a drop in the ocean.
Yes.
It's going to get crazier as we move along.
Yes.
This information is within our domain, engineer. In terms of our structures, in terms of our planning, what then can we do to be proactive enough to ensure that once what Patricia has said has already occurred, at least the very basic, we can protect life?
I think, as I said earlier, they're doing quite a good job in terms of early warning systems. But I said some of the issues that we are looking at, like flooding and all that, they are basically a long-term project. And we as engineers are concerned that when roads are destroyed by flood waters, like it's happening in Maimahio Narok Road, now to carry out those repairs, those are funds that have been used maybe to build new roads somewhere else. We've had a major flooding now in Sultan Hamud for the weekend. Sagana Bridge, the same. Now, that destruction will require like emergency repairs. Now, for us, those are funds that have been gone to open up new roads somewhere else. So it has a major impact on our entire development process. And I said we need to look at how do we address this issue in a holistic manner. And I'm sure a few things happening. I think planting of trees is one major aspect that needs to be fast-tracked, because the more cover you have on the ground, the less the runoff. So that's something we should be thinking about going forward. And you see, our concern as a nation is not just flood waters. If you start by a river, the water you're likely to see flowing on the river is likely to be brown, dirty. Now what does that tell you? That is a good red soil that has been used for farming, which has been washed downstream.
Eroded, yeah.
And of course, next time you come to farm in that area, it's now a desert, because the good soil has been
eroded,
washed away. So it is something that we as a nation need to think about very, very seriously. One, provide sufficient forest cover to ensure that our good soil doesn't get washed away into the Indian Ocean. Number two, when we have these floods, they don't cause destruction. As I said, Nairobi needs to work on a stormwater drainage master plan yesterday, not even today. Today is too late. Because you see what happens every time it rains. Vehicles stored on the road, buildings washed away, vehicles being washed away. It's such a major challenge that it needs to be treated with the urgency it deserves. Unfortunately, it has not been given the urgency it deserves, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And we pray that at some point, some people in authority will see the urgency of undertaking these works.
And you said a lot needs to be done. You said you've just said people in authority should look into this issue seriously, address it with the urgency it deserves. What line of thought, though, should inspire them coming together? What line of thought should guide points of action to take when it comes to this issue?
You see, as an organization, we have had our professional body is like a lobby group, and we have engagement with the Minister of Infrastructure and the other bodies involved in this process, and we have told them this is what you need to do, so that you don't end up then having to spend more money to repair damage that should have been avoided in the first place. It doesn't make sense, because then you are throwing good money after bad. Like the kind of funds that we are going to spend repairing the road at Maimahio, those are funds that should have been used for other activities. We need to ensure that every time we design, be it a road or housing scheme, we have provided for the flood waters where they will go. And I think the easiest thing to do would be to do a small corrector facility. It need not be a mega dam. Even small, what we call water pans, in certain areas. They have been used in certain dry areas where water collects when it rains. And the people in those arid communities are able to get water to support their livestock. So even as we talk about mega projects, at a local level, we can do small water pans. And I think, in my opinion, that's the initiative, that's the area we should go.
That's the area and the direction we should go. Patricia, just to set the record straight, what happened in my Mahio? Because the layman will joke about it and say, taifa inagawanyika, you know? But what exactly happened?
Well, it's more a geological than a meteorological issue, but the flood waters exacerbate the situation. So I think it's more geological. So I think the geologists can better tell us what is happening, but the flood waters make it worse.
Make it worse. Yes. So if you have a geologist watching the show this morning, would appreciate on 22162 or through our Twitter hashtag Good Morning Kenya, just kidogo in 2 sentences, 140 characters maybe, just let us know what exactly happened in that area. And you said something earlier that captured my attention, Patricia, in terms of relaying information. And in fact, I've just seen someone write to us and talk about receiving weather reports. It's no longer as well received as it used to be back in the day. Why is that?
Well, I think we've not had a very good presence in the past. You all know, okay, everyone knows we had Ayub Shaka, we had Gwata Francis on national TV. And if anyone wanted weather information, they would get it from there. But that changed a bit, and right now we do not have a TV presence. But we have Twitter, we are keeping with the times, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, and we also have our website where we put forward information. So for the young people, the tech-savvy people, if you need Met information, it is readily available for you. Maybe we can work on improving our presence in the media, and that would be a challenge to you guys. But if we do that, then everyone can be able to get information. We are downscaled. The Kenya Meteorological, our service is downscaled. So in all the counties, we have a presence. We have a county director, we have an office. So access to information at the grassroots right now is improved than it was a few years back.
A few years back. I think that's a step in the right direction, because most of us in urban areas, we will run to Twitter and we will consume the information online, but there's somebody somewhere in some place that may not have similar privileges, and that could end up being a concern. In terms of planning, Engineer Mushemi, planning our roads, how we put up our structures, are there proactive measures we can embrace to ensure that, like some of the photos or some of the pictures and videos we see of a house literally half immersed in water, is there something we can do, even as we put up our buildings, to ensure that we shelter ourselves from these kind of situations?
I think one of the things that we have said as engineers, that people should be careful as part of the master plan for the city, where they put up their buildings. When people put up buildings in low-lying areas, chances that when the water comes, is likely to affect their developments. So that is something that we looked at from an urban planning perspective. But one thing we must acknowledge, Mr. Njoroge, is that when you plan for roads or other facilities, you are basically relying on historical data. And that historical data, particularly in a country like ours, which has not been very developed, that historical data only takes you to a certain level. when you design, say, a bridge, you are trying to get, say, readings from the rivers, from gauging stations and all that, and you take care that the highest this river has ever risen is a certain level. Now, what Patricia is saying now, with the change in weather patterns, you find that those assumptions that you made at the planning stage are not now applicable. That is what's happening. If you drive across Sagana Bridge on your way to Nyeri during the dry season, it is difficult to imagine that at some point, the water level can rise above the bridge. The same thing as Sultan Hamud. So, for the government and us in the industry, this is like a part of the learning curve. Like now, my Mahio road, ideally, that road should be raised above the level of the general surroundings. So that even the floods, the water cannot rise to the level of the road. Which means now, if you want to raise that road now from my Mahio, as you go towards Narok, it's a long-term project. It cannot be done overnight. And that applies to quite a number of infrastructure projects. If you look at the bridge now in Sagana, what does the flood waters tell us? It means that that bridge ideally should be raised from where it is. But that's not something that can be done overnight. It's something that needs time, needs to be planned, needs to be budgeted for. So getting information on one hand, now planning and budgeting for it is another, and that's where we have a timeline and a gap.
I love that you bring in the issue of budgeting for it, because just last month, March, right, we consumed news that Nairobi is setting aside 194 million Kenya shillings to deal with floods. You know, first of all, I'd like to understand how can you effectively deal with floods once they're there. And you know, also another problem is that in this country, if you don't legislate, then you go to court. And the elephant in the room could be, how do you legislate for floods, or how do you take floods to court for the effects that we've been suffering from? But then again, Patricia, from an expert point of view, this is money set aside, 194 million to deal with floods. If you were to give free consultation on air this morning, what would you tell the Nairobi County government? How can they properly utilize these 194 million to ensure that come next year, a time like this, we are not in the very same place?
Well, first disclaimer, I'm not an economist.
Yes.
I do not know how to budget for things. So I would say, engineer mentioned building codes. And we've seen in Nairobi, in this country mainly, we've seen people build in places that they're not supposed to build. And when floods come, those are the areas that get affected. And that's what we see in the news. And we see it as a very big problem. And yet, laws were contravened in that instance. So I would think one of the ways that we can mitigate against the floods is to prevent further building in these low areas, riverine areas, areas that are set aside for nature. Because nature is not very kind. You mess with nature, it messes right back with you. In terms of planning, evacuation is a good way of helping people, especially immediately the floods occur. We give early warning. If the ones who are acting feel that these levels of rainfall that we expect are likely to affect people in a certain region, evacuate them. I think that would be a good step. And yeah, I guess evacuating people, building dams in the long run to get all this runoff into one place. That way it does not just stand in one place and damage the integrity of roads and houses. And people who are building houses for occupation should also avoid building, should build more structurally strong things.
How can we improve on drainage? Because it's still an issue that has come up.
I'm glad to talk about Nairobi County.
Yes.
I must admit, I am not sure how that 194 million was arrived at. But I think Nairobi, and this has been mentioned before, is in need of a comprehensive stormwater drainage master plan. in view of the many developments that have taken place over the years, that the bulk of the rainwater cannot percolate to the ground. It ends up on the surface. And I think what the government should be looking at is finding a way of directing that water to certain locations, either small ponds or small dams, or at least to the nearest water course. That's what has not been happening. In the drainage facility we have here, the moment it rains overnight, they all overflow. And that happens individually or roads in the city. That is something, they need to expand those drainage channels. They need, number two, to channel that water to a location where it will not cause damage. But as Patricia is saying, what do you find in this country? You find people have built on the riparian way lifts.
Literally.
Right? So even that water should find its way into the water course. It cannot get there because there's a barrier. People have actually settled there. And then that causes destruction, loss of life, loss of property. And then, as you say, people turn around and say, tunaomba serikali itusaidie. This is rather unfortunate. So we need to find a way. How do we ensure that flood waters are captured, utilized for our benefits because we need that water? Number two, they don't cause destruction to life and property.
In yesteryears, Budalangi used to be the issue. When you think floods, you think Budalangi. But right now, we don't even consume news about Budalangi anymore. It has come closer. And it's right here in Nairobi. But in terms of sensitization, Patricia, map out the country for us and tell us which are the most critical areas, the most flood-prone areas around the country.
Well, our country is how it is, the entire country. We have almost every feature. We have low-lying areas, we have highlands, we have the lake basin. In central Kenya and the highlands, we hear of mudslides when it rains. And then towards the coastal region, and now even Nairobi, we see a lot of flooding. And towards the coastal region, it's because a lot of the rain highland finds its way to the Indian Ocean through Tana River and all these other rivers. So those areas are likely to suffer from even flash flooding, where it doesn't rain where you are, but you get floods because it rained upstream. And then western parts of Kenya, the flooding is a bit less. Like you mentioned Budalangi, they've put in measures. I think they have dikes nowadays that prevent the flood waters from reaching the residential areas. And we have the Lake Victoria Basin region. We don't hear flooding so much towards the western parts of the country.
Yes.
But because the country slopes downwards towards the Indian Ocean, then we have flooding towards the low-lying areas. Yeah.
And I'm very sure there are those that may be quick to apportion blame to the weather department and say, oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. But then again, Patricia, you said it's a multi-sectoral approach.
Yeah.
Various agencies need to be involved. Other than the weather department, which other agencies do you work together with?
We work with all the line ministries. We work with Ministry of Water. We provide them with information. We work with Ministry of Energy. We work with the National Disaster Operations Center. Actually, they are the largest consumers of our information. If we expect a flood or an extreme event, they have to get the information immediately, and then they are able to act. We work very closely with Red Cross. In fact, we saw very recently they had to airlift a few people from where it was flooding. So we provide information to Ministry of Agriculture. Every sector that is affected by the weather, we provide information. And even non-governmental actors, non-state actors, we also provide them with information because, like we said, it's multi-sectorial, and where one agency does not have enough money to cater for whatever is happening, a non-state actor can come in and save the day. Yeah.
So there is that window, there is that opportunity for a non-state actor to come in, work with them, and make sure that whatever gap exists, it's breached for the benefit of Kenyans. We've got around 4 minutes to wind up the interview, but I'd like to come to you, Engineer, for your final words. What would you like to leave Kenyans with this morning?
I think what we need to do is we need to heed the early warnings that come to us. If you are told that the road is flooded, please do your best to keep off that road. The other thing, of course, as she has said, we need a sustainable disaster response mechanism, because what has been lacking in this country, in that you have an issue like what you used to have in Maimahiu. People are spending nights there. There should be an arrangement where those people can either be airlifted or at least taken to other destinations. It's a pity that people come, they find the road has been cut off, and they end up spending the night there. So there are a few things that the government can put in place to ensure that if the road is not passable between Murang'a and Nairobi, what do you do? Can those be directed to other alternative roads? Can you have a rapid mechanism that feeds those people and takes care of them, either some temporary shelter, like it happens in the hurricanes in the US? Unfortunately, it hasn't happened in this country. And you find certain situations may actually lead to unnecessary deaths and suffering. So I think there is need to the system to revamp the disaster management authority so that we have adequate disaster response. And you find even take a very typical example. Here, Uhuru Highway, 2 vehicles may have an accident here. You'd expect that within no time, the police would come with a tow truck, sort of the issue, tow the vehicles away. But now what happens? The vehicles stop there for 30 minutes. Other matatos are overlapping. Everybody's stuck there for hours. When, if that matter has been addressed as soon as possible, that frustration would not have been there. So those are the kind of things that we need to put in place, because disasters will always be there. These are natural phenomena. We cannot stop them, but we can mitigate the damage that comes with them.
That comes with them. Patricia, over to you, your final words.
I feel strongly that we should stop endangering our own lives. I'm sure, Njoroge, you've seen flood waters and someone drives right in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally.
Exactly, yeah. So we give warning, please heed the warnings, because water is very powerful. Yeah. And in the future, this is maybe for the government, because we know we expect more of these intense storms, then we should incorporate planning. We should incorporate climate change and all these changes that we expect into future planning. So buildings, bridges, roads, all this. If they incorporate that, then I think, well, we'll be doing a good job to mitigate the floods. Yeah.
And you said you're on Twitter, you're Instagram, Facebook.
Yes.
Let's give people the avenues, the forums where they can get information. On Twitter? Our
handle for both Twitter and Instagram is at Kenya Met Department. And on Facebook, we are Kenya Meteorological Department.
Kenya Meteorological Department on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Kenya Met Department.
Kenya Met Department.
Yes.
Your website?
www.kenyameteorologicaldepartment.go.ke.
Well, you have the information, if not all of it, at least part of it. So all you need to do is to ensure that you're proactive enough, because not everyone can do everything for you. You have a part to play. So we have played ours. It's up to you to make sure that you access the information, because it's out there. The platforms, as you said, you feed them by the minute.
Twitter is by as events turn out.
As events unfold. Yes. So there you go. You can reach, and there are sources of information. And for the devolved units, you have county presence.
Yes.
You have county presence. So kindly make sure that you're alert and you're aware of what's happening, or at least even what's going to happen to you in terms of the weather. Thank you so much, Patricia, for coming. Thank you so much, Engineer Mushemi, for finding time to join us this morning. We wish you all the best in your present and future endeavors. And thank you for watching the show this morning. My name is Samuel Njoroge. Coming up next is Family Check with Safin Achieng.